The real power from this, though, in my opinion, is less looking at these values with one another, but more taking a look at them and using them as warnings. So we can set up real-time visual warnings on records where these are met. So I'd go through and set it up similarly to the definition. I have added my definition to this. I give it a name, a title, and a message, a positive, neutral, or negative sentiment, and a priority. So I can determine, is this automatically going to display, or can it be hidden behind a caret that can be clicked and then have it visible? So in this case, we are looking for a contract amount for our food trucks when the truck type equals food truck and it is a truck lease. So very, very specific sort of example that we've got here. But in this case, that's what we're looking for. So we want to know when the value is greater than the average or mean of all the comparison data for all of our food truck leases. This says, good job, this contract amount is above average for the food truck lease, and it gives us a brief glimpse at the data that was gathered and when it was last correlated, when it was all gathered together. So we can see that as soon as it's available on a details screen. So if I was an end user and I was inserting a truck lease for a food truck and I got this message, I know that I'm doing really well. On the other hand, it can be useful to send a warning and not just a congratulatory type message. For example, if I have an instance where the contract amount is lower than the lowest present value on record, that might serve a really good warning that I could have misentered, miscalculated the amount for that contract. And I would have a negative sentiment warning indicating that, hey, you might want to review the contract amount. This is really low. So we can set that up all based on the comparison data for all of the other records that we've defined similarly. So it's not comparing apples to oranges, but apples to apples. So if I wanted to add a warning, I would do just like I am within here. I could build one. In this case, I'm not looking necessarily at my master service agreements. This is a warning for a different agreement and a different definition, but I'm looking at engine horsepower for lease agreements. And we'll take a look at 600 horsepower less than warning. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this one. This is also set up on my contracts with my focus on the contract amount. And it gives me some brief overview of the field so I can verify that it's the right field or not. One downside to this is it does show every field that could potentially have statistics on that table. So I get to scroll way down in this case. And I'm going to go to next. And then I'm going to select a definition that I had built back in my comparison data. So I want this to set up my review horsepower for engine leases. I can see, any of the recent runs, how many records I've got, the same sorts of information we talked about before. Determine, okay, is this the definition I need to be working with? In this case, yes. Now I set up how I want to look at this definition. I want it less than the minimum on record. So this is where I would have that negative warning. And I'm looking specifically at contracts where the category is set to engine lease, and I'm looking at the engine horsepower field on those engine lease contracts. So I make sure I'm only looking at my 600 horsepower engines on engine leases. And here's where I would define everything that's going on. I can review my rules, give it a name, title, and message. If I head into an engine lease, so I'm going to go to my contracts and I'm going to find search. And I want to take a look at all of my lease agreements that are using 600 horses. So just like the rule I had set up for this, I want to make sure I have a record matching that. And I will go ahead and take a look at a record that's already in the system. So we can see that things are looking really good with this. It's a $5,000 contract. I have no warnings on here. But hypothetically speaking, let's say that I just entered this as a brand new contract and I forgot a zero. I'm at $500, which is a far cry from 5,000, of course. And I save this. Now when I'm brought to my details page, I in real time see my alert that says check the price. The contract is currently less than the minimum value on record. Say, wow, this is really low. Now, if I saved this and I said, nope, 500 is absolutely correct, that would become the new minimum value on record. And thus, this message would fall off. But I want to use this to say, oh, I did mess up. It's actually 7,500. Okay, great. Now again, in real time, I have a different message. So I get my positive message that says, wonderful, this one is above the average price for a 600 horsepower engine lease. So we're congratulating our salesperson or whoever's entering this to say, great work. I'm glad that we were able to do this, and this is in our top half.